Marriage is a sacred celebration of the love between two people, and June is one of the most popular months for them to get married. However, many weddings are deemed as void because of lack of requirements when applying for their marriage license and other problems. So before a couple walk down the aisle, what are the important requirements before getting married? What is the process of filing for these requirements? What steps can couples take to ensure that their marriage is valid?
Good evening, I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno and you're watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you. Now tonight we'll be discussing your legal rights on the issue of marriage, what you need to know about the basic but pertinent requirements that are needed before the big day and what you need to do to acquire them. Now tonight we are joined by Attorney Fina Tantuico, President of the UP Women's Lawyers Circle and a professional lecturer at the UP College of Law and the Lyceum of the Philippines College of Law. Good evening, Attorney Fina.
Good evening.
Ayan, I'm glad that you were able to make it. A lot of our production staff had a difficult time coming here. And of course, we all know the traffic is terrible because of the rains. And in fact, my partner, Attorney Karen Jimeno, unfortunately couldn't make it. I hope, Karen, you're fine. But of course, the show must go on, and we need to give some legal advice to our televiewers. And our topic for tonight is something that you're very, very much an expert on.
Not really. Not really.
But it is an interesting topic because obviously, well, we all saw the wedding of the celebrities, Marica Reyes and Richard Poon, and it seems to me that June is a special month for marriage. And a lot of people are asking, the first thing that they ask, of course, the basic things, what are the basic requirements? Of course, if we have to go through the textbook requirements for that, it'd probably be too boring. But just, if you just want to summarize, just run through some of the basic things that they need to get through to get married.
Okay, I lump it into several groups now. There's a gender requirement.
Of course, which is interesting. Actually, we'll touch on that later on. Okay.
The parties have to be male and female. There's an age requirement.
Right. Of course, it's 18, right?
Which is the age of majority. But the law says that if you're between 18 and 21, you still need to submit an affidavit of the consent of your parents, parental consent. And if you are 22 to 25, some proof of parental advice.
Parental advice. Now that has to be written as well.
Yes. So you have the gender, the age, of course the formal ceremony with an solemnizing officer who is authorized to administer marriage.
Right.
And there is also the procurement of a marriage license.
Right.
Those are the essential, kind of the basic requirements.
Yeah. So you split it between essential requirements, which is the legal capacity, meaning the 18 and above, and then after that, of course the other
age.
The age, no, the 18.
And the ceremony, and the ceremony itself, where both the parties will profess that they consent to be married before a person who is authorized to solemnize marriages.
All right, that's perfect. Kasi what we, a few weeks back, maybe a few months back, we actually tackled the issue of annulment. But now we're talking about the requirements of marriage, which is a totally different thing. It's kind of related because some of the essential requirements that you mentioned earlier are needed. Otherwise, if you don't meet them, or it's if it's partially defective, then it's either void or voidable, diba? So, like in the case of if you get married and you're below 18.
Right? That's
definitely void.
Yes.
Ab initio, I mean, from the very beginning. So what you need there is just a declaration of nullity.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. But if you've attained the age of majority already, so you'll have to at least go through
now, as
that process.
That's right. Now, as we mentioned earlier, as you said, at least in the Constitution, at least, I know it's mentioned that, and also in the Family Code, I believe, that it has to be male and female.
Male and female.
All right. Now, one of my guests in another show was a transgender. Now, have we tackled that issue? Because obviously, especially with the rights of of gay rights coming to fore, and also sex change, that's a reality now in the world. Have we tackled that as the Supreme Court or any court tackled that issue of whether transgender can get married?
That's a very interesting topic.
Yeah.
Especially now because, as you said, there is a proliferation of, well, in some jurisdictions, same-sex marriages are allowed.
That's right. Okay. That's the other thing.
But here in the Philippines, it is not.
It is not.
Okay, it's categorically stated in our constitution. It has to be between a man and a woman. There have been cases in the U.S. courts where they actually tackled the issue of sex change. Okay. But interestingly enough, we have two Philippine Supreme Court cases somehow touching on this issue. Right. We have the case of Silverio. If I'm not mistaken, I might just not have remembered the exact title of the case, but it's Silverio versus CA and Kagandahan, Republic versus Kagandahan. Okay. Initially in Silverio, there was a, the issue came to the fore because this person filed a petition to rectify correction of entry in the civil registry, with respect to his gender, saying that he had already a sex change, no, and that he went from male to female, and that to allow him to get married, and that was precisely the reason for the petition itself, because he wanted to get married, and the Supreme Court categorically stated that you cannot. All right. You cannot, because
he cannot change the entry.
He cannot change that entry.
Okay. Because it's not a clerical error.
It's not a clerical error. It was a statement of a fact at that time.
At the time, no?
Yes, and he said, you compare. There was another case actually where the person who wanted to
get married,
wanted his change recognized, filed a case in court. Right. But this was different from this particular case because he was actually found to have or to be suffering from a medical condition, such that when he, or was it a she, was born,
it's kind of a mixture, a mixed gender.
The description was he or she was female.
All right.
Because initially, probably it was the female
I see.
genitalia organ that was
there. I see.
But it turns out, and it's interesting, it's only now that I found out, there is such a medical condition whereby without any human intervention, certain hormones in the body develop. There are more male hormones that develop, and you actually
but that's more of, I think, sorry to cut you off, but that's more of an exception to the rule, right?
Yes, really? It's an exception to the rule.
But generally...
But in that particular case, the Supreme Court categorically said, yes, you may change.
You may change because of that medical condition.
Because there is no human intervention.
All right, okay, so in that regard, I guess we can make that exception that perhaps it's possible that it may be male and male, no? But only in those extreme medical conditions.
Yes.
All right, we'll answer a few questions, ma'am, if you don't mind. No? We'll answer a few questions from our viewers with the help, of course, of Attorney Fina. Our first question is from Maribeth, and she asks, I am engaged to an American and currently residing in LA. My fiancé and I would like to get married in the Philippines, especially since most of my family and relatives cannot go to the US. What process and requirements do we need in order to get a marriage permit, maybe a marriage license, but that's what she means. I also want to ask, if we get married there, will our marriage be valid under U.S. laws? So the first question is, what are the, again, these are kind of like a checklist of requirements.
Right. No? Well, the most important documentary requirement for this type of a marriage, note that one party is an American citizen and the other is presumably a Filipina.
Yeah.
The foreign party must obtain from the consulate here a certificate of legal capacity to marry.
All right. Okay.
That is a requirement. It's stated in the family code. And then they have to go through the usual process, which is that they should obtain a marriage license. But they will have to submit that certificate.
Yeah, their marriage here will be valid in the U.S., right? It'll be,
yes,
yeah,
of course.
Will be considered just like any other marriage.
Just like any other marriage,
yeah. Yes. Of course, that presupposes that the American fiancé is single, because if he was a divorcee or if he was a widower, we would require additional documents, right? Like a certificate of death,
a proof,
and,
yes,
and certificate of divorce.
Yes.
Okay, good. Now our next question is from Nicola via Facebook, and it reads, I read that my fiancé and I have to attend seminars, prenuptial, marriage counseling, family planning, etc. Is this really a requirement? Do we really need to attend these, or is this only for church weddings? Is there a possibility to skip all these seminars? I think these seminars are required for you to secure a marriage license.
A marriage license, yes. And these seminars are required for those who need either parental consent or parental advice.
I see.
Okay. So if you fall within that category, meaning that you still need parental consent, and that has to do with age, then you will have to attend all these seminars. Otherwise, if you do not, and you are not able to present a certificate attesting to your attendance, then this may delay the processing of your marriage license.
All right. Just to clarify for a lot of televiewers and our folks out there, because there seems to be a confusion, and in fact I got questions on my Facebook earlier between the difference between a marriage permit, a marriage license, and a marriage certificate. So maybe we like to clarify that the permit and the license are essentially the same, right? That's essentially the same. You need that as a requirement to eventually get married, and when you get married, that's when you make a declaration, and when you make a declaration, that's when you write it down, that's where you have it on the certificate. So just to clarify that.
Right. I suppose when you say marriage certificate, it's the marriage contract.
Yeah, the marriage contract, that's the marriage contract. All right.
Yes.
Now, our next question is from Lani, and she is asking, how much is the total cost? Oh, we're getting to the cost part. For acquiring all these requirements for a marriage certificate, can I use the same certificate or permit? See, there you go.
She's using the marriage certificate.
For a civil and a church wedding, or should I get a different one for either? I guess it's just one marriage license.
It's just one. You need only one. But with respect to how much, I don't have offhand. I don't have the
fees,
figures right now. But you know, it's very helpful. You go to the website of the particular local government where you want to get married. Like Manila, for instance, has a website. Or you go to the municipio and find out, because that's usually there's a menu of fees. And one of them is the fee for the marriage license.
Now, just to clarify, the lack of attendance in these seminars will not make your marriage void or voidable. It's more of you not being able to get or secure a marriage license, right?
Yes, it will suspend the issuance until after 3 months. If I remember correctly, my family code.
And just for the audience out there, how long does it take normally? Once you've submitted all the requirements, how long does it take to get the license?
There is a posting requirement of 10 days. So within that period, it's your paper will still remain there in the municipio, the local civil registrar's office. I suppose 12 days if you count the administrative procedures that have to be made. Maybe 12 days, you'll get it. But there is a posting requirement of 10 days.
There you go. So rule of thumb, if you're getting married anytime soon, you better do it right now. Get the license, all right? Work on the license right away. All right, we'll take a short break. Legal Help Desk will return after these reminders. Right now. You're still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel, and we're still joined by Attorney Fina Tatuico, President of the UP Women Lawyers Circle. Ma'am, one of the questions that seem to abound for people who are getting married is prenuptial agreements. Is this a necessity, or can people do away with prenuptial agreements?
Well, it is not a requirement, but more and more people are discovering the practicality of having one, especially because of the property relations governing that govern now with the enforcement of the family code. If I may just give a little background.
Sure. Absolutely.
Prior to the family code, that means prior to 1988, when we were still under the civil code, the presumption was that the governing property regime between spouses was what was called the conjugal partnership of gains.
Right.
Meaning to say, when you enter marriage, and it just so happens that you have property that you had acquired prior to getting married, you attain the exclusivity with respect to those properties that you worked hard for or were given to you before you got married.
So what becomes joint would be the fruits?
What would become joint would be all those properties acquired during the marriage. And the fruits of your exclusive properties were conjugal.
So if you had owned a piece of property before marriage and you were renting this out, the rent during the marriage would go to the conjugal partnership. Now, but the rule now is different, right? The rule now
is different. Under the family code, the presumption is what is known as absolute community. So when you bring into the marriage property, automatically when you get married, your spouse
owns 50%.
Owns 50%.
That's the rule. Right?
That's the rule now. It's absolute community. Now, there are those who don't mind this at all, but there are those who realize that it really is a very sensitive topic that might even affect the relationship of the spouses later on, because sometimes it may happen that those properties that you have under your name before you get married are actually properties of your parents.
Right, exactly.
Or you co-own with your siblings.
And it could be a sensitive issue.
It could be a marriage dampener.
Right. So I guess what our message here is that not only should you be concerned, ladies and gentlemen, of your legal capacity, whether you're a man or a woman, or whether you pass through the essential and formal requirements, but what's also important to consider are the property regime that will be governing your marriage. That's also one thing that you should really be concerned about when you're planning to get married.
Right.
Now, let's continue answering some questions, ma'am, if you don't mind, from our viewers. Our question is, the next question is from Erwin. I was a witness to a friend's civil wedding, and the attorney at the city hall where they held it told my friend that they need to get a third witness because the other witness was the bride's sister. Can I ask why this is? Or I read that the witnesses should be of legal age and nothing about their relations to the couple. Would you know of any rule sort of like violating or prohibiting a sister or a brother from being a
I can't think of any because the law is quite categorical. It just needs two witnesses. It just needs two witnesses who are the age of majority.
Yeah. So Erwin, that person was wrong, whoever was advising you. You know, basically, any witness who's above 18 is allowed. Now, ma'am, I would like to ask just a quick one. A lot of people are asking, are there exceptions to the rule that you require a marriage license before getting married? Are there cases where you don't need a marriage license?
Yes, the family code is quite categorical also with respect to certain circumstances that don't need a marriage license. One of this is a marriage performed or entered into at the point of death.
Yeah,
or
articulo mortis.
Articulo mortis.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that's one. And also, there are instances when a party lives far
from a municipal hall
the municipal,
which makes it impracticable to get a permit.
To get a permit, that's one also. And if I'm not mistaken, also what we call common law relationships.
Right. So basically, if correct me if I'm wrong, if you've been living in, and I think this also to discourage live-in per se, no? Is that if you've been living in for 5 years, if you've been cohabiting, then this is one exception where you don't need a marriage license. All right. So you need what is the proof that you need to show that you've cohabited? Is it a written affidavit?
Yes, there is a requirement that you should at least show proof by submitting a document attested to by a person within the vicinity where you both live who know you to have been living together for a number of years.
Okay, good. All right. Now, M is asking via Facebook, I just got married last May and my husband is bugging me to change my surname to his, but I want it hyphenated. How do I go about changing my name and what are the steps and requirements for this? So
you can actually use your maiden name hyphenated with your husband's surname. It's okay.
Yeah, you don't need to take on just your husband's family name. Right?
Yes. In fact, you're even allowed to still use your name if you'd like to. Now, what are the steps? I don't recall of any particular steps. No, I guess this will just happen as a matter of course. Like if you're applying for a driver's license, and it used to be that it was you obtained it when you were single, and if you renew it, you're already married. Then you just show proof that you are married and that you are going to use this name in your driver's license. The same with the other IDs that you have, and you just use it.
I think it's more from a practical standpoint. It's more from a practical standpoint. For example, you're getting a passport, you're getting a driver's license, and you're already married. So sometimes it just causes confusion if maybe your passport is still your maiden name, and then your driver's license is your married name. So I think it's a matter of your choice. But I think for practical purposes, because you're married, and usually in some IDs would require your married name. I think it's most practical that you have your married name, but you can have it hyphenated. That should be no problem. All right. Now we have a question from Aida via Twitter. What are the reasons for a marriage to be declared void? We were talking about that earlier. Some of the grounds. No? If the marriage is found void, should they marry again? That's kind of strange. Or do they just need to fix whatever paperwork is needed? I guess what she's saying is that if for example, it's a marriage void ab initio, let's say they got married when they were 17, and they know that, and they realize that, should they just remarry? What is the best solution there? Do they have to first have a declaration of nullity and then get married? Let's say they still love each other. But they know that there's a defect in their marriage, that let's say they got married before 18 or one of the parties.
They should just remarry when they reach the age of majority.
So they can correct it. But they don't need to have to go through a kind of a declaration of nullity of the previous marriage.
Usually you go to court for a declaration of nullity of your marriage, Article 36, no? You don't, well, there are instances also when you have void marriages such as bigamous, polygamous marriages, then you go to court to have that particular marriage void.
Voided, yeah. So the general rule is that if a marriage is void ab initio from the very beginning, then you just have a declaration of nullity.
And I suppose, based on the question, if it's bigamous, it's totally, you cannot have a relationship with that particular person. The same with polygamous marriages and all those marriages which are considered void.
But here's a question that might be more related to succession rather than the laws on marriage. If you have a marriage, let's say void ab initio, they got married, they were 17 and below, or they were 17 years old, but they had children, would those children be legitimate or illegitimate, considering that their marriage was void from the very beginning?
Well, they can be legitimated.
They can be legitimated.
They can be legitimated if they actually go through the marriage ceremony at the time that they get married again. But you know, I think that portion is a lacuna.
It's kind of a gray area.
Kind of a gray area.
Because would they have rights of legitimate children? That's a question, right? Would they have rights as legitimate children? Or you know, because legitimate children get twice as much as illegitimate children, right? So I guess that's still there's no Supreme Court case testing this.
Yeah. I don't know of any offhand. Offhand, I can't think of any offhand right now.
Okay. All right. All right. So anyway, well, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have left. No? You know, the time really flies by so fast. So I'd like to thank our guest, Attorney Fina Tantuico. We really need 2 episodes for this when we talk about marriage. But we'd like to thank you, Attorney Fina Tantuico of the UP Women's Lawyers Circle. Thank you for coming over, despite the inclement weather.
I was doing it for Karen.
And next time you're here, when we'll call you again, next time we hope that Attorney Karen can be here. And I certainly hope Attorney Karen will be here next week. I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno. Join us again next Monday as we talk about your legal rights on the issue of traffic violations. Until then, good night and God bless. College of Law. Good evening, Attorney Fina.
Good evening.
Ayan, I'm glad that you were able to make it. A lot of our production staff had a difficult time coming here. And of course, we all know the traffic is terrible because of the rains. And in fact, my partner, Attorney Karen Jimeno, unfortunately couldn't make it. I hope, Karen, you're fine. But of course, the show must go on, and we need to give some legal advice to our televiewers. And our topic for tonight is something that you're very much an expert on.
Not really. Not really.
But it is an interesting topic because obviously, well, we all saw the wedding of the celebrities, Maricar Reyes and Richard Poon, and it seems to me that June is a special month for marriage, and a lot of people are asking the first thing that they ask, of course, the basic things. What are the basic requirements? Of course, if we have to go through the textbook requirements for that, it's probably be too boring. But just if you just want to summarize, just run through some of the basic things that they need to get through to get married.
Okay, I lump it into several groups now. There's
Marriage is a sacred celebration of the love between two people, and June is one of the most popular months for them to get married. However, many weddings are deemed as void because of lack of requirements when applying for their marriage license and other problems. So before a couple walk down the aisle, what are the important requirements before getting married? What is the process of filing for these requirements? What steps can couples take to ensure that their marriage is valid?
Good evening, I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno and you're watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you. Now tonight we'll be discussing your legal rights on the issue of marriage, what you need to know about the basic but pertinent requirements that are needed before the big day and what you need to do to acquire them. Now tonight we are joined by Attorney Fina Tantuico, President of the UP Women's Lawyers Circle and a professional lecturer at the UP College of Law and the Lyceum of the Philippines